And a very pleasant good morning, everybody. Great to be with you here on nofilter.net and, of course, Caffeine TV, all our other platforms, with another edition, a special Super Bowl pre-Super Bowl edition, right? Is that redundant, Lubie? Super Bowl pre-Super Bowl. Yeah, it is pre-Super Bowl, and nobody knows what the hell the outcome is going to be. You talk to a zillion people, you get a zillion different opinions about what's going to happen in this ball game. But pre-Super Bowl edition of the Morning Briefing. I'm Jeff DeForest, and that is the hottest man on the planet when it comes to predicting playoff games, right? You're still sitting there at 5-1 in your last six. Not too bad. What's scary is that we agree on the outcome of this game. Although it's with great trepidation. I don't know that anybody is overwhelmingly convinced. We have a couple of buddies that sent it in very heavily on the San Francisco 49ers as soon as the line came out, which has been hovering around 2 points in their favor. And then we discussed this yesterday, that you always want to take the points with Patrick Mahomes. You'd be sitting there at 12-1 in situations where the Kansas City Chiefs have been underdogs. It's a rarity over the last several years, and here they sit as underdogs again, as if you're about to get sucker punched by the books in Las Vegas. There's a reason that the lights never go off in Las Vegas. And, man, is that town rocking right now. Had a big fight there last night. Our good friend Brad Jacobs, Top Rank Boxing, staged a huge show on a Thursday night. They've been doing that. He was, of course, the producer of the Tuesday night fights on the USA Network and largely responsible for the big comeback of George Foreman, which sparked that program to humongous ratings for a boxing show. And then he's come up with this concept now and has these big fights on ESPN on a Thursday night, although this one was a bit of a dud, staged at the Mandalay Bay. Teofimo Lopez against a kid named Ortiz, who just ran the entire time. He had his track shoes on. I guess that was an indication that he wasn't going to engage Lopez too much, who has superior power. Lopez was a 7-1 favorite in this fight and barely scraped out a unanimous decision, winning on two of the scorecards by margins of 7-5 in terms of rounds, 115-113. So that had a lot of nervous chalk players getting ready to be zipped up in a body bag. And, of course, the other event that's going on there that receives about as much attention as if they were having some kind of spearfishing contest in the Bellagio fountains. And that is the Live Tour, Lubie. It doesn't matter how much money they spend on players. They got John Rahm there, and Terrell Hatton recently signed on with the Live Tour. Of course, they made that original acquisition away from the PGA Tour of several of their stars, including Dustin Johnson. Phil Mickelson was a big splash, even though he appears to be a shot fighter, pretty much washed up in terms of being a competitor. You had Brooks Koepka with the teeth. How much cocaine was Brooks Koepka doing
at the Panthers run?
When he was at that Panther game? My God, they had a shot of him in the booth there. He looked like DiCaprio in The Wolf of Wall Street, which I watched again the other night. It's been playing frequently now on Showtime. Showtime. And it amazes me that we actually had Jordan Belfort on the program a couple of times, the guy who the movie was based on. Do you think that is anywhere close to an accurate depiction of what this guy was doing? Nobody could be alive after doing that many drugs. It's unbelievable. And then, of course, the orgies. What's up?
Yeah, but he said on the drugs, he wasn't doing drugs to that degree, but everything else he said was pretty true to form.
What a life. I mean, if it ended right then and there, he would have lived, a zillion lifetimes by anybody else's standards in terms of having just a raucous good time. Well, we're hoping, though, that you guys have a raucous good time on the Super Bowl. Live Tour is in Las Vegas right now, and not much fanfare surrounding their first round. Does anybody pay attention to that? They're on like the CW. Do they still have that television contract? I think they're sandwiched in between Mannix and Barnaby Jones on tape delay on the CW. What the hell could they possibly be thinking? How could they be making money on this thing? I know if you were an advocate of the idea that this was strictly sports washing and washing the hands and the blood off the hands of the Saudis, you would have to think, that's pretty close to the truth, isn't it? I mean, they have generated absolutely 0.0 Blutarsky numbers in terms of buzz, but they're out there in Las Vegas right now. And, of course, it's time to pull the curtain and open it up on the big event, which is Sunday. Now, a lot of people are going to be having Super Bowl parties. We've had a theory for years about the 5 essentials, the 5 Bs that are essential to a good Super Bowl party. You're familiar with this theory, Lubie, and I don't know that anything has changed on the standards that we put out there. 5 Bs that are vital to a good Super Bowl party would be booze, number 1, babes, number 2, a big screen TV, number 3, barbecue, Number 4, and of course, now everybody has one right there in their pocket,
Toxic, man.
a bookie.
Yep.
So if you have those 5 things, and then you have to hope for a decent game. Actually, I think I root for like a blowout in the Super Bowl. Remember, there was that period of time, it seemed to go on for like a decade,
Every
where
game.
every Super Bowl game just absolutely sucked. It
Yep.
was among the worst competitive events that you would ever lay your eyes on. And then that was the good thing, because the pregame show has already started. So if people are arriving for the pregame show, CBS, you could turn it on right now, and everybody's there. Even Nora O'Donnell is standing out there in front of the Bally's Hotel, hawking the idea that, you know what, you can bet on this game and you can watch it right here. Everybody's pumping it up. Pregame show underway. The people show up for the pregame show. How early before the 6:30 proposed kickoff of the Super Bowl do people start showing up at your parties, Libby? Have you ever thrown one? Yeah.
4 or 5. I mean, do people show up earlier than 4 or 5? That would be annoying.
Yeah, the flowers are usually in the punch by the end of the first quarter. And then you're praying for a blowout so that everybody will leave by halftime, and you can just sit back and watch the rest of the game. Hopefully you're on the winning side. But yeah, it's going to be quite entertaining to see what actually transpires in this game, because it does loom as a toss-up, right? Well, we have any number of friends that think that this game is going to be close. Like a lot of NFL games now, they've morphed into NBA games in terms of the way they're played out and the dynamic of the game itself. Will this boil down to the final couple of minutes to decide the outcome of the game, in your opinion? Or is this thing going to be pretty comfortably won by one side or the other?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a really tight game. I mean, it's funny that the better all-around team by almost every account is the Niners, but they've struggled. Their quarterback is Brock Purdy, whereas Chiefs have started to come on. Defensive line starting to play really well, and Spagnuolo has been calling really good games. And Patrick Mahomes has shown that he can be more conservative, smart, and not take those risks, take those chances, limit the drops of his receivers by just not overthrowing to them, and find ways to win games and not just be this dominant force. To me, I think it's going to be a close game. And again, what's the only reason I'm not all in on the Niners is I think it's going to come down to the coaches at the end. And I think Andy Reid has a massive edge over Kyle Shanahan, who's proven now twice with their offensive coordinator. And I get it. He wasn't the head coach, but it was pretty clear Dan Quinn, a defensive coordinator, wasn't calling those plays at the end of that fucking Super Bowl. Whether he should have been, whether he should have reined in Shanahan or he shouldn't have, he didn't. It's clear Shanahan, the young offensive coordinator, wanted to show what he could do, overdid it, and allowed the Patriots to come all the way back and beat them in overtime in the Super Bowl. Or head coach with the Niners, again, having a comfortable lead, and he had to show who he was and what he could do instead of just running the fucking football and letting his defense continue to dominate Patrick Mahomes. I just feel like Andy Reid's confident in who he is, comfortable who he is, and he doesn't have to reach. And Shanahan, for some reason or another, every time his team's in the position to close out a Super Bowl, he finds a way to lose it.
I just wish Andy Reid would stop eating. We're tired of referring to him as the fat man. Shouldn't he be appearing in a Golo commercial or one of those weight loss commercials? Maybe jacking his waistline with some Ozempic there, just sticking a needle right in his stomach. Do they really need to feature him eating at Wendy's, grabbing not only his plate of food, but then eating everybody else's at the table? The man is morbidly obese. Would you stop it already with Andy Reid? Morbidly obese.
Mocking his eating habits. It's like he can't listen to them. He keeps asking about the next food item. It's like it's
unbelievable. Yeah, I mean, this guy is the last guy that needs to be eating a bunch of fried food that is not even composed of the real animal itself.
Exactly.
What kind of processed meat is in Wendy's chicken McNuggets? Do they ever reveal the ingredients there? No. And it's good for you. No, they never say that.
No.
They just put some fat fuck in front of you, and he can't help but poach everybody else's meal. Stop it already with Andy Reid. Let's help Andy Reid. We like Andy Reid. He's a likable guy. His family's had an immense number of struggles. I think both of his sons have been in jail and been addicted to things. And, one of his sons was an assistant coach doing like 4 years now for vehicular manslaughter.
Yep.
When he was drunk at the time. I mean, the guy's had a share of problems, and he maintains a pretty friendly and engaging demeanor. Stop feeding this fat fuck. That would be the message of the Super Bowl. I don't want to see any more commercials with him slobbering down a bunch of food that would kill most people anyway if that was all you ate. No matter how much he recommends it, I am boycotting Wendy's as a result of that particular commercial. But anyway, that aside, favorite Super Bowl, Louis? Do you have a favorite Super Bowl? Mine will always be Super Bowl III, of course, because at the time it was 1968. The championship game, 1969, was the date of the Super Bowl, January 12th, the Orange Bowl. Joe Willie with the finger in the air. That's one of the iconic pictures of all time in sports, as Joe Willie was leaving the field, Namath, and he's got the finger in the air after he guaranteed the victory very casually. I mean, imagine this. Can you picture this going on today in sports, where many of the people were interviewing Joe Namath while he was on the beach here in South Florida? And then, of course, he made that statement while he was sitting with a bunch of reporters around the swimming pool. And one of the iconic columnists of all time in the history of sports writing, the late, great Edwin Pope of the Miami Herald, was the guy that picked up on the idea that said, wait a minute, Joe Namath just said that there's no way they're going to lose. All you had to do was bring that up to Don Shula, which that was another part of the whole legacy of that game. Said I got to know Don Shula pretty well. And if you mention Joe Namath and or the guarantee, he bristled, my friends. It was like you suggested to him that Bill Belichick was a better coach. And this was while he was alive. And he would just stick that jaw out and essentially, without saying a word, suggest that you go fuck yourself. So that was good. But I do remember this. I was a vendor at Shea Stadium. I had a souvenir stand by one of the gates, one of the entrance gates, Gate D, I remember. Gate D was right next to the players' parking lot. They came in through that end of the stadium. And I remember I'm selling hats. It was freezing inside. Once you got inside the stadium there, the wind at Shea Stadium was just absolutely ridiculous. And all of a sudden, you really did. You started considering eating each other's flesh just to stay alive. So we're watching the players come in, trickling in from the Jets. And it's like 10 o'clock, no sign of Joe Willie. 11 o'clock, no sign of Joe Willie. Then about, I would have to say it was about 12:15 maybe, with a 1 o'clock kickoff for this game against the Oakland Raiders, the AFC Championship game of 1968. Remarkable comeback by the New York Jets. And we see a guy in a fur coat coming in, and he's got two Swedish models, one on each arm. And we're thinking, nice cufflinks, Joe, but what the hell? They were holding him up. And the legend goes, I mean, if you see any documentary about that game or about Joe Namath, the New York cops were on to the idea that Joe Namath had been out partying until 4 a.m. the previous night, perusing various bars. And they subsequently, figuring that they had solid inside information, sent it in on the Oakland Raiders, who looked like a winner right up until the end of the ballgame there, when Namath found Don Maynard in the end zone, and they managed to pull it out. But legendary stuff. I mean, the guy could barely stand up, never mind the injured knees. It was strictly because he'd been on an all-night bender the day before the AFC Championship game. And then he has the audacity to guarantee that they're going to beat the vaunted Baltimore Colts, coached by Don Shula, quarterbacked, although he didn't play much in this game, by the great Johnny Unitas, with Bubba Smith and all kinds of tremendous players. And somehow they grounded out a tremendous game plan by Weeb Eubank. And they grounded out 16-7 victory in a somewhat dominating performance. Favorite Super Bowl of all time? I don't know. Do you have a favorite? Does any Super Bowl game stand out to you?
I mean, I hated the Bills, and I actually liked the Cowboys before Jerry Jones.
You like the Cowboys? Wow.
Well, not now, but I mean,
it's un-American, my friend.
And you didn't really know who Jerry Jones was when Jimmy Johnson was the face of the Cowboys. I liked that. I really liked that group. So when they annihilated the Bills, that was great. I don't know if it was the first one or the second game where they beat the shit out of the Bills.
Yeah.
That was wonderful.
And most people here in South Florida hated the Buffalo Bills. All right, a couple of prop bets I was looking at. Over-under on the anthem. We still need to do some more research on that. I'm going to go over on that. Reba McEntire. I know she had the 83-second anthem.
Yeah.
The only time it's gone under 90 and a half seconds, which is the line, over-under line, 90 and a half seconds, was 1999. This is the most recent time that's happened. 1999, Billy Joel went under 90 and a half seconds. I think in the enormous spotlight that's cast upon a star doing the Super Bowl. Now, the World Series is one thing. This is the fucking Super Bowl.
Yep.
Don't you think McIntyre is just going to stand there for a couple of seconds, take a deep breath, and then finally deliver the one thing that we want her to, and that is stretching out the word brave into ridiculously exorbitant proportions. So that we can all cash a ticket on that. 7 of the last coin flips have gone tails. Does that indicate a trend there? It's kind of like when the guy comes up to the roulette wheel and you see on the board there's been nothing but a sea of red. That's been 19 straight red numbers pulled, and some rapper will unveil, just take the rubber band off a giant wad of cash, plunk it down confidently on black, not realizing that every spin is completely arbitrary, as it would be with the coin toss. So what do you think? 7 out of 10 tails. Is it time to move off that and go with heads or follow the trend, Lubie?
I would go heads.
Heads. Okay. All right. I'm going to go heads in the over on the anthem. I think we reversed from an opinion of tails, but I didn't see that trend there. Law of averages, I'm going to go with there, that it's going to balance itself out. And then here's an interesting one. Lil Jon, who I'm not familiar with. You say he's an Atlanta rapper? Lil Jon, you have to lay 200 to win 100 that Lil Jon will make a surprise appearance, an unannounced appearance with Usher during the halftime show. Now, they have a big hit song, I believe it's called Yeah, that they put out together that has gotten billions of hits on Spotify. Would it not be appropriate for Usher, who doesn't seem to be an overwhelming egomaniac, does he? Seems like one of these guys that would be more than anxious to embrace some of the people he's collaborated with over the years. Will Lil Jon make an appearance there? And then here's a good one, Lubie. You're getting plus 1,200. Is there any chance that will.i.am shows up during the halftime show? will.i.am. No. Plus 1,200. You put down 100 to get 1,200 on that. And you're wondering, I mean, maybe we can get some information on that. Find out if he's even in Las Vegas, Lubie. Maybe he flies in right before the halftime show. But that's another thing to take a look at during halftime. I'm also going to say that Mahomes goes under 262 and a hook on passing yards. Don't you feel like Andy Reid's going to try to run the ball in this game? And even if he's not successful, Reid is not the type of guy to go away from that. But last year, when they were carrying the Philadelphia Eagle fans out of the sports book in body bags after they blew a big lead, and Mahomes rallied the Kansas City Chiefs in the second half to what looked to be almost an improbable victory at that point, he only threw for 182 yards in that Super Bowl. So that's well short. I mean, you can see that Reid is one of those guys, unlike Shanahan and unlike Dan Campbell, who will adjust his approach because of the magnitude of the game and find that maybe he can get some kind of metronomic control by running the football more than depending and relying on Mahomes, which everybody would be expecting him to do. So with the sort of diminished performance of the wide receiving core of the Kansas City Chiefs this year, I think they've gotten over the dropsies. No more manos de Piedro, hands of stone, as they've managed to catch the ball. Travis Kelce, who was just a drop machine prior, and you were thinking the old adage applied, right out of Rocky Balboa, women weaken legs. He was horrible at the tail end of the regular season and going into the postseason. All of a sudden, he's back to his old dynamite self. So I'm thinking that Patrick Mahomes goes under 262 and a half yards. Under, Lubie. What do you think?
He hasn't actually played well in the Super Bowls. He's had moments like the last 7 minutes versus the Niners, the second half versus the Eagles when he was on the one leg. I don't know. The Niners defense has been hit or miss. They played really well in the second half versus the Lions. I think they're going to have to run the ball. I like your Pacheco bet, and I probably I wouldn't go in on that one, but if I was going to, I would go under because nobody's going to have a throwing fest.
There's your burial picks for the Super Bowl. All right, you guys enjoy it. Remember, you need booze, you need babes, you need a barbecue, you need a big screen TV, and now it's not as essential that you invite Louis to Lipschitz or some type like that, but make sure that you have a way to make wagers on the game. And don't use your own account. If somebody shows up, make sure they give you the money first if you're going to make a bet for them. But a bookie would also be an essential component of any successful Super Bowl party. All right, good luck, everybody. We'll see you on Monday with our review, and maybe we'll actually crack an egg right over our heads because I'm not sure that we're on track with any of this stuff, and I don't know that anybody is overwhelmingly convinced that they're on the right side of things in this ballgame. So for Mike Lubitz, I'm Jeff DeForest. Thanks so much for tuning in here on NoFilter.net and Caffeine TV. We'll see you on Monday with our post-Super Bowl edition of the Morning Briefing.